me talk a little bit about why I think everybody should at least read this book. And I want everybody to buy this book. You can get the PDF online. It's Dungeon World, by the way. Oh, Anthony, I'll answer your question in a second. I don't actually care if you play it. I don't actually care if you care about any of the classes in this or anything. The reason I want you to read this book is because I want you to become a better game master. And I want you to, I want everybody to do this. And there is a section, it's about 18 pages long in this book. It's all you really actually technically need. And it is called How to GM. And it talks about what is the GM's agenda. And this is literally an instruction manual for how to be a good game master. And it tells you the principles of being a good game master. And we are going to talk about them today. This has nothing to do with Dungeon World, the mechanics. It has nothing to do with Dungeon World, the system powered by the apocalypse. These are the principles that Dungeon World believes. Not even believes. These are time-tested principles. And the truth of the matter is, it's just like fundamentals in any sort of sport. Like if you've ever been a part of a sport, a lot of times what instruction, you get instruction for something and you realize, oh, I was doing this naturally already. I just didn't even understand that I was doing it. Great dungeon masters do a lot of these things automatically, intrinsically. Sean, I have not made Bob read it for night school. That we're actually probably going to do a whole session on this. Step one is like prep and building a game. There's a whole different section of night school. We may even need to do like a different thing, like 201, which is like how to be a good game master, right? Like there's like two things, but this is now some of this is in Dungeon World speak, but we can easily kind of convert it. So principle number one is draw maps, leave blanks. So the idea of this is draw maps, leave blanks. This doesn't just mean literal maps. The idea is when you are drawing your map, when you are creating your prep, when you are thinking about your ideas for your game, you need to leave blanks. You need to leave room. And what is that room for? It's for your players. This is an important principle because when you are creating things, you need to make sure that they aren't so rigid and they aren't so locked in that there's no room for the players to have their say in it. This is so critically important to being a successful game master. I promise you, despite what you may think, okay, despite what your players may think, they may actually be mistaken about their fun, right? I've talked about, can you have fun wrong? Yes, you can have fun incorrectly. People are so used to playing these games like video games or movies or TV shows where this entertainment is just spoon-fed into their mouth. Okay, we have an entire generation of very lazy players. And I'm not trying to make any sort of personal attacks. When I say lazy players, I mean players who show up to your session and basically are just like, entertain me. I am here to be entertained. You are my PlayStation 5. You are my Xbox One. You are my Netflix account. Okay. Only thing I need to do is show up with my, my tablet, and I probably maybe don't even know the rules that well because the D&D Beyond or the Pathfinder Nexus has kind of figured everything out for me. You will occasionally tell me when I need to roll, and I will roll some dice. Okay. But I don't really want to have to work at this. Okay. I just want you to take me on a ride. Okay. I want a roller coaster. Okay. I want to just show up to the park. I sit down, they click me in. Let's go for a ride, baby. Whee! Right. I'm not making any decisions. I'm not making any choices. I get to sometimes I get to scream. Sometimes I get to shout, and I'm going to be surprised by what you have prepared for me so that I can go on the journey that you have laid out before me. I think this is a horrific way to GM. I think it's probably okay, when you're first getting into the game that to do this because people are going to be overwhelmed, right? It's training wheels, right? A bike can let you go anywhere. You know, training wheels, your parents' hand on the back, make sure you don't fall over and hurt yourself and lose interest before you get interested. So that's fine. If you know, there's nothing wrong with a beginner box for a new player. Granted, somehow for 25 years, people got away without doing it, and they were, you know, not as game savvy as we are today, which makes me think that the nature of today's entertainment has actually, you know, created players to be more passive and more lazy, and they don't want to engage in order to receive their friends, right? So, but I'm saying it's okay to give them a certain amount of coddling. But, you know, one of the things that you should quickly start doing is making sure that they understand that they are in control of this ride. This is not a roller coaster, okay? This is an ATV, okay? All-terrain vehicle system, okay? They are in control. They can go left. They can go right, okay? And I am going to draw a map, but I am going to leave a lot of blanks. Blanks that I don't know the answer to, that we are going to fill in together, that we're going to both sit here tonight and we are both going to be surprised. Okay. We're both going to find out. That is so incredibly important. Okay. Second one, just a great idea. Address the characters, not the players. Again, we're used to playing at a certain level of casual play. When I used to play World of Warcraft or EverQuest with my friends, you know, we'd be on like Ventrilo or whatever, TeamSpeak back in the day, and you know, I wouldn't say, you know, Acelian, Gale, get over here. I need your assistance, mighty bard. You know, no, I would say, yo, Smith, get the fuck over here. I need heals, bro. You know, I would address him. I was talking to him, my friend. Hey, Larry, stop that. You get over here. We've got an ad, right? That was what I talked about. I wasn't addressing their characters. I was addressing them, the people. One of the things that we want to do is to start addressing the characters. And that just doesn't mean when you're asking them what they're going to do on their turn. It means finding opportunities to ask the character a question, and then the player has to put themselves into the mindset of that character to answer the question. Hold on a second here. Derek, do you consent to have your content, Night School in particular, shilled on TG in relevant threads? I think it would be good for new players, but would require setting up more comment filters. What is TG? I don't know what TG is. So let me know what that is. Okay. Sending a telegram. Oh, okay. I don't know what TG is. So 4chan's traditional gaming. Oh, okay. When you say shilled, what do you mean? You mean like posting it? Yeah, I mean, you can post whatever you want. I don't care. You have my permission to share our stuff on TG relevant threads. But anyways, so addressing the characters, not the players. So one of the things that I like to do, and if you watched Rise of the Rune Lords, you saw me try to do this with Bob and Nick, and you could see that it was kind of a brutal process because they weren't used to doing this, and you know, it created this interesting, dare I say, cringy moment because they didn't understand. So like, I would say, you know, instead of saying, Bob, what are you doing? You know, you could say, Azius, Escanor is holding the front line, but Burl is under attack. Azius, what do you do? Or you might say, Burl has just fallen, you know, Burl has just gone unconscious. And I turn to Azius and I say, Azius, Burl is down. What are you going to do next? Why? How do you feel about it? When something happens, reach out to that person and ask them in that moment, in that critical moment, ask the character a question. The character can't answer. The player has to answer for the character. And in that moment of answering for their character, that is role-playing. because now I have to divest myself of me as a person and instead imagine that I am in this moment, that I am this character, and that I have these thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and I need to answer that. And that is going to ground me into this fictional reality that we are building together. So address the characters, not the players. Number 3, embrace the fantastic. You know, very often, this is one of the rules of Dungeon Craft, which I've talked about with Bob, which is, this is a fantasy role-playing game. Make it fantastic, you know? It's so off, like, one of the things I do not, I've talked about this at length, one of the things I don't like about Golarion is how unfantastic some things seem. Instead, it seems more Renaissance, right? Renaissance isn't fantastic to me. I don't want to play 18th century Victorian England. I want to play in a fantasy world. Play it up, make it fantastical, embrace it. Think about what is going to make people go like Keanu Reeves style, like, whoa, you know, like figure out ways to have your adventures on floating islands and have, you know, strange creatures and have these incredible treasures and these incredible moments and these spells, and make them feel like they are living in this fantastic world with these incredible vistas that inspire them and, you know, make you feel like you are part of this incredible world that has been hidden, but it's behind the veil, right? Like, find those things and embrace them. So embrace that fantastic. That's our 3rd principle. 4th, this is more of a dungeon world principle, but it does apply even to a game like Pathfinder 2, which is make a move that follows. What this means is the mechanics and the fiction should interact to each other, okay? If I describe something in the fiction, make it true even in the game mechanics. I wish Pathfinder 2 did this a little bit better, but like a great example of this that where I did this was early on in Rise of the Rune Lords. Gore, played by our player Rory, who left the show after the first adventure, had used an intimidating strike. In the first round of combat, he charged in against a group of goblins. He used Intimidating Strike. I shouldn't say he charged in. He moved once, he strided once, and he used 2 actions to use Intimidating Strike on the lead goblin. He crit, which with an Intimidating Strike would make the creature frightened too. But with his Great Sword, or Bastard Sword, doing double damage, he killed the goblin in 1 blow. Okay? But narratively, what he did was, these goblins were talking shit. He strides in, 1 action, and just decapitates the goblin. Now, mechanically, that goblin is frightened too right before he's instantly dead. But the narrative suggests that this guy just did a stone cold stunner on this guy. He just laid him out with 1 effect. And so what I did is I made all the goblins in the encounter, the other goblins, the ones that weren't even hit, I made all of them frightened 1 instead. So his Intimidating Strike crit, which killed the goblin, instead turned into an AoE, no save, no attack roll on the other goblins, frightened 1. Why? Because if I said you walk in and you slice off the goblin's head and I go, the other goblin, and wait, right, we have mechanics in this game. There is a way to express things and say things. So if I, the GM, say, okay, Gore, you run in, you slash this guy's head off, and you go, oh, the other goblins are like shocked. You could see that they are stunned with fear. Their fear grips their eyes as they see one of theirs, maybe the biggest one, the leader, gets cut down brutally, 1 shot with a particularly vicious and intimidating strike. They quake in their boots. And then nothing happens mechanically. You aren't reinforcing the fiction with mechanics. Pathfinder 2 has these mechanics. Use them. If someone is stunned by a revelation or something happens that is very jarring, make them stunned. Say, you're stunned, 1. Okay? If something happens that's terrifying, make the creatures frightened. Like, let the players feel like the narrative actually matters. That what's happening in the fiction does have an effect. That it's not just about their fucking feats. That it's not just about their fucking magical items, skills, and character sheets. That the fiction is what is driving this world that we are living in. That is hugely important because it means that your players will start to interact with your game on the level of the fiction instead of just on the level of the mechanics, right? Instead of always looking to their character sheet, instead of always trying to figure out a way to math their way out of a problem or to figure out a way to feat or action or activity their way out of a problem, they are going to look at the reality of the fictional world and they are going to start to treat it as if it was real. And when they treat it like it's real, you're going to find that they become more immersed and that this elusive concept of role-playing will become naturally emergent because they are going to begin thinking about the game in the terms of the fiction. So this is incredibly important. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 5, never speak the name of your move. This is another Dungeon World one that's kind of important. You don't always have to explain everything in exact mechanical consistency. With Pathfinder 2, it is a very crunchy game. It can be a very tactical game. And so it can be tempting, even for me, to be like, he strides, he attacks, right? Because like if you say something like, the ogre suddenly charges you, someone's going to go like, oh, okay, so he's going to move twice and then attack with only 2 actions because sudden charge. William Brandis beat me to it, but, you know, map attack. This is horrible, right? It became a meme on our channel, but this is actually a perfect example of what not to do, right? Never speak the name of your move. Map attack is exactly that. Right? You don't break things. Don't just describe your character's turn in the sequence of what mechanical actions they are taking. I am going to demoralize, then I am going to stride, and then I am going to use assisting shot. You know, don't describe it like that. Never speak the name of your move. Use the fiction, describe it. The mechanics should inform the fiction. If you're going to demoralize someone, then the fiction should be that you are actually doing something that would be demoralizing. Don't be like, I look at the monsters with love and respect in my eyes, and I feel for a moment pity for them. Demoralize, right? Like that doesn't follow. The move should follow the fiction, right? Flavor first, then mechanics. You know, it's almost a yin-yang relationship, total entropy. It could be yin-yang. If I do something flavorful in the fiction, then the mechanics should follow. But if I want to do something mechanical, that's fine. It's a game. You're allowed to have mechanics in a game. Then that's fine. Just make sure that the fiction represents the mechanic that you are following. Right? I can have it both ways. All right, next. Give every monster life. Horizon Thunder Sphere. We needed that. I wanted a Horizon Thunder Sphere. All those people today. 2-round version, boys. 2-round version. They're getting it nasty. I might actually be a bigger fan of Inner Radiance Torrent. Hold on a sec. My microphone's falling apart. Ooh, I like RoboCop Forever. I love it. I love to do it the other way as well. You know, if you don't know how something's going to end up, make the dice roll. But again, the fiction should follow the mechanics. If I say, guys, I am going to go and I am going to talk to the Chancellor and I am going to get him to give us permission to cross into the enemy territory. And I go into the Chancellor and I say, hey, listen, you know, I really want to convince this person that we need his help, and this is the only way we can do it. And the GM says, great, sounds like what we were talking about in the fiction is a diplomacy check. And you say, that actually makes total sense. I'm going to make a diplomacy check. I failed. And then you go, great, okay, so, and then I would say to the character, I would say, Galad, what happened? And then Galad would say, oh, yeah. So I start asking him about why we need to cross into it. And then I start mentioning about how I might actually personally have a vested interest in doing this and how it might actually not be in the crown's favor. And the person gets pretty upset about it. So that is a good way to describe that. Okay, moving on. Next. Got to get to there. Here we go. Okay. Give every monster life. I'm guilty of this as well on some of the Rise of the Rune Lords APs that you have seen, of making the monsters a bag of hit points and a bunch of attacks and saving throws and turning the entire fucking combat into one big fucking math problem. It's horrible, and we should aim and aspire to do better. These are our characters' foes, right? By the metal and the measure of your foes are you weighed and found, right? Like, make these things terrifying, make them monstrous, make them scary, right? Make them seem like they are alive. Give them this viciousness or this personality that makes them feel and seem like a real threat. Describe to live. Find a way to make your monsters have that sort of larger than life feel. Make them feel like the way you did when the T-Rex first appeared in the Jurassic Park film. Like when the Balrog emerges from the shadows at the bridge of Khazad-dûm, right? These are monsters that had life, and we remember them. If the T-Rex is just 140 hit points and a low reflex save, ha ha ha, I guess I trip it. That T-Rex, you're selling it short, man. You're selling it short. This next one here is a good reason for why, of all the things that you should keep behind your GM cheat sheet or up on your screen, is a list of names. Coming up with names randomly is one of the hardest things to do. And it's good to have a list of even 20 names, maybe some female names, male names, some elven names, dwarven names, whatever. But if you can, name every person and use the name, even if they're not going to show up again. And I think that makes the world seem realistic. Instead of just being the bartender, give him a name. You don't have to give him a backstory. This doesn't have to be like that XP to level 3 skit where, you know, he just watched Critical Role and he's like going into this long diatribe about the bartender. No, just give him a name and give them like one personality trait so that players at least can make some sort of real physical mental connection with this person, you know? Nathan Crocker says, then you have less combats in the scenarios. Combats could take too long. Smile. I mean, I would rather have less combats that were awesome and evocative and amazing and things that I can remember for that. There are some combats that I've had in my TTRPG experience where I actually sometimes have to physically remind myself that that wasn't real life, that actually didn't happen. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that wasn't real. Like, that was literally just pretend. Like, or even to the point where I'm like, that wasn't a movie. That wasn't something that I watched. Like, that wasn't even something that I read. Like, that was something that happened. But in my memory space, it occupies the same layer as like, oh, these were real events. And my mind remembers them that way. And so I'd rather have more combats like that. Hell, I would, if I could have one, I mean, there's a couple that I can even think of, and I know some of my players are in the chat who've played with me for many, many years. William Brandis is one of them. And some of these things just, you know, stick out in my head, and I go, if I could have one of those type of fights a month, if I could play once a month and I only had one of those, that would be incredible. I would actually be fine with that. All right. Ask questions, we got 4 more principles. Ask questions and use the answers. This is critical. Okay? Part of playing is asking your characters what is going on. Ask them questions. And then when they tell you something, go with it. Use it, right? So obviously the easiest is like, what are you doing? You know, what did you do? Where are you going? What are you doing? But like, you know, don't be afraid to let your players have a little bit of say. If they give you something, run with it. Let them know that they're part of this too, you know? And like, you just want to like make sure that they feel like they're part of this creative creating process as well. So if a player makes a really good check, ask them, wow, you really knew a lot about ghosts because you critically check. So Zolgarthor says, I don't fully understand this point. Okay. One of my players Maybe it's even a character who isn't particularly high trained in intelligence. Maybe they just have training in something like Arcana, but there's some weird construct, okay? There's some weird construct, and the player makes an Arcana check for recall knowledge, and they critically hit. And so, okay, crazy. This character knows a ton about this particular golem, okay? I mean, that might be crafting, okay? Which no one expects. It's kind of funny. But instead of just going, and then moving on, you go, wait a second. Why does Zolgathor, the fighter, know so much about constructs? And then Zolgathor, the fighter, it's on them. This is a player moment. They get to sort of build a world. They get to build a concept here. They get to say, I don't know why. Because right until that roll happened, no one at the table knew that Zolgathor was apparently expert on constructs. But the dice gave us something beautiful. They gave us something unexpected. And now we have established, the mechanics have demanded that Zolgathor the fighter knows a shitload about constructs. So now it is our job, it is our duty as players at the table to make sure that the narrative reinforces that. But why not let the player do that? That's your character. You make it up. You run with it. They might need some help. They might need some guidance. But this is a moment for Zolgathor to sort of kind of do some world building. And maybe they explain that maybe the fighter school or academy where they went to, they trained against, clockwork automatons. That the army that they were training to be part of, they wore, I don't know, like mech suits or something, right? I don't know, it depends on the nature of your game, but like the training dummies they fought against were no simple, stuffed things. No, they had like these clockwork artifice things. And so you fought against constructs and clockwork beings since the time you were old enough to hold a sword. And everyone goes, oh, wow, that's actually really awesome, right? And what's even cooler, this is like GM 300 level. It's how you make your game actually awesome, is you go, that is so awesome, Zolgathor. You know what, Zolgathor? I'm going to give you a new ability. You now have plus 1d6 precision damage. Maybe that scales with your level or your potency bonus, so you can make it scale to make it a little bit interesting. Or you could just make it like a +2 bonus, almost like a vengeful hatred, like the dwarf ancestry feat, right? Take something that already exists in the game, like vengeful hatred, dwarf ancestry feat, but instead of applying against giants or orcs, apply it against constructs. And it's not called vengeful hatred because this isn't something that you hate. Instead, it's called like, skilled destruction, right? You fought against constructs your whole life, apparently. We've just established this in the fiction. You, the player, just established this in the fiction. And so the rules of Dungeon World, the rules of good principles demand that the mechanics should follow from the fiction. And so I go, well, you have just established something that is true. You have just established that, hey, guess what? Your character knows a shitload about constructs. He spent his entire life training how to fight them. For the better part of 10 years, he spent his time fighting against clockwork mechanical dummies. I'm sure, if he wanted to get an A for the class, he had to figure out where they're weak. And I'm going to give you this scaling damage bonus that's going to apply against constructs for the rest of the campaign. Oh my God, his character's broken. Yeah, who the hell cares? Your campaign's probably not going to get to 20th level anyways before all your players leave and the campaign blows up anyways, okay? Or before somebody makes a really inappropriate joke and a bunch of people get offended and leave your game. Okay? Go with it. Because in the meantime, someone's going to look at that character sheet and that's going to be something that they go, I can't build this character anymore. This character is unique to this table. This character is unique to this group. This character is not something that I could just replay. This character exists. This character has this ability because we were all here in this moment when these dice were rolled and this awesome thing happened. And then Zolgathor's player came up with this really cool story about how he spent his entire life training against clockwork arming dummies. And you go from there. Max says, I'd probably just give them trained in a specific lore. You could do that as well, right? But the point is, you are doing something for them that is outside of the purview of the rules because the fiction demanded it. And that's why we play these games, because we want to create, not just the DM, we want to create. This is about the players and to a certain extent the GM, but it's about the players creating a story rather than simply just passively discovering it. All right. Your D&D campaign should not be like a book, like a novel. Okay. Your D&D book, right, should not be like the Two Towers. It should be a blank journal, or probably more appropriate is like one of those blank journal prompt books, you know, the one that's like mostly blank, but it has like prompts and it sort of inspires you or guides you to fill in a certain different type of essay or diary entry every day. That's what a D&D game should be like. It shouldn't be like a book. Okay. It should be like a prompt journal. All right. Ha, something offensive said at the table. That is every single game I run. Everyone joins in. Yes, if that works for you. I mean, case in point, this is my Dungeon World book, and so I run this at a lot of conventions. Obviously, that's where I mostly run it. And inside of it, as my bookmark, is my X card for making sure that when I'm playing with strangers, if I or anybody else at the table gets a little bit out of hand, we can make sure that we keep it all kosher. Okay, next one. Be a fan of the characters, right? Be a fan of the characters. You are the GM, but you are there to be a fan for them. Try to figure out ways to challenge them, but also to push them towards cool moments, victory. Give them these moments where they can either shine or fail. But either way, you're still interested in the characters. This is a great example of like, another way of saying this is like, don't make it about your GMPC. Don't make it about your NPCs. The story is not, you know, the adventure path that you bought, some stupid NPC in there, some stupid boss, some stupid villain. None of that is as important as the PCs. Even if the PCs aren't the most, this is not, by the way, saying that PCs should have plot armor. Far from it. Sometimes being a fan of the PC means I'm going to make this PC's life living hell. But the most important thing is that the camera, the spotlight is on those characters. We are here to see what those characters are going to do, say, and ultimately do and say, and how they are going to either achieve great success or watch them fail. Either way, though, that spotlight, that camera, that focus is going to stay centered squarely on the characters, because we, as GMs, are fans of the characters. Okay? 3 more. Think dangerous. All right. I'm just gonna read this here because this is well said, and why not say it? Everything in the world is a target. You are thinking like an evil overlord. No single life is worth anything, and there is nothing sacred. Everything can be put in danger. Everything can be destroyed. Nothing that you create is ever protected. Whenever your eye falls on something that you have created, think about how it can be put in danger, fall apart, or crumble. The world changes, and without the character's intervention and heroic actions, it will change for the worse. You know, in Rise of the Rune Lords, you know, I've discussed this many times. We don't exactly know what will happen. There was a TPK, but, you know, like, okay, hey, the party have been to Sandpoint. Sandpoint's a target, and I will destroy Sandpoint. I will kill off an NPC. Oh, but that NPC is more important later on in future adventure path that we'll probably never play. I don't care. Put crosshairs on everything, right? And Kieran says clocks. Clocks are great for this too, because now you've ratcheted up the tension. Throw that clock out there. When the party fails, make a 6 clock, okay? Make a 6 clock that says Sandpoint is destroyed. Tick it twice and throw it into the middle of the table, and watch your players realize with fear that the fictional world that they've been a part of, that the things that they've been enjoying, man, you're about to blow all that shit up. And this isn't a fake threat. You've got your hand on the button, and you are going to push it. And don't be callous about it, because if you're just doing it just to do it, then the players will not make any sort of connection. This is like teaching dogs, okay? When they're bad, you punish them. And when they're good, you reward them. So, you know, if my dog, you know, does something bad, go to your cage, go to your crate, goes in the crate and has a 5-10 minute timeout. Same thing with the players. The players perform badly, make a stupid decision, don't play well enough, destroy something, blow it up, give them consequences. If you can't kill their characters in any of the editions that you're playing, like Pathfinder 2 or D&D 5th edition, then kill everything else. They'll get the message. All right? 2 more. Begin and end with the fiction. Everything you and the players do in your game comes from and leads to fictional events, right? When the players make a move or take an action, okay, they are taking things in the world to do it. Constantly be flowing. It's like a flow state. Okay, yin yang. Always be connecting it back to the fiction. If you find yourself stuck in a place where you are just describing things over and over again mechanically, stop for a moment and say, wait a second, does this make sense? Wait a minute, what does this look like in the fiction? Hold on, tell me, explain to me, what is going on right now? Let your players ask you this question. You ask them that. Make sure that we all understand that this, that we're all on the same page. William Brandis, great point. The game is a conversation, back and forth. Are we all on the same page? Great, cool, let's proceed. Something just happened mechanically. Let's make sure that we address this in the fiction. So always make sure that everything that you're doing begins and ends with the fiction, because at the end of the day, we are going through this process of playing the game so that we can collaboratively create, not discover, create a story together, okay? Last one. Think off screen too. Just because you're a fan of the characters doesn't mean that everything is always happening to them. Sometimes the best move is being made a long way away. One of the things that I learned when I started using progress clocks in my later Blades in the Dark game is sometimes it is okay to allow the players' failures not to directly affect them immediately, but rather to sort of trigger off-screen badness, right? That things that they are doing now are going to bear evil fruit later on. Right. And so sometimes the best thing to do is to think about targets or issues or problems that aren't a problem for now, but a problem for later. Like a great example of this might be the characters are having problems against a fortress of stone giants and they keep having to retreat and fall back and they're not making any good progress. Well, maybe the consequence is that the town that they haven't been thinking about for several sessions gets raided and destroyed, or at least severely damaged, because you're thinking about, hey, how do the actions of these characters influence and affect not just the characters, but the world around them? When the players realize that their actions, their failures, their successes, their inaction has consequences in this fictional world that you are building together, that starts to make them, again, really kind of hunker down and think, wow, this is kind of like real life. I can think about this game in a sense of, like, what I do matters. And it's not just about me going through the paces. I'm not just reading a book. I'm not just playing a video game. The things that I do matter. And that can be very scary for some players because they're not used to having that kind of control. But with time and practice and with a little bit of help, they will find that this is extremely empowering. This is the core of player agency. This is what it means to have agency at your table. It means that the things that I am doing matter in the shared construct of the world around us. And those are the principles of our Dungeon World game. And they are the principles, for the most part, for pretty much being a good GM anywhere or anything. And so again, draw maps, leave blanks. Number 1. Number 2, address the characters, not the players. Number 3, embrace the fantastic. Number 4, make a move that follows from your fiction. Number 5, never speak the name of your move or your action. Number 6, give every monster life. Number 7, name every person. Number 8, ask questions and then use the answers. Number 9, be a fan of the characters. Number 10, think dangerously. Number 11, begin and end with a fiction. And then number 12, think off screen about the larger world too. So those are our 12 Dungeon World principles that I really think are just 12 GM principles. And studying them and learning them and understanding and sort of incorporating them, because these aren't things that you should be thinking about like in the heart of a moment. You shouldn't be, flipping through the book in the middle of the session and thinking about it. These are more principles. These are things that you indoctrinate and they become a process. They become a part of your thought process as a GM in order to create these incredibly exciting games that I think you're going to find that your players are richly rewarded by and remember for many, many years to come. And you kind of up your GMing level.